Hi, I'm Mark Geary, and you're listening to the You Think That's Funny podcast. You can say that accusatorily, or you can say that interrogatively. You think that's funny. You can go to youthinkthat'sfunnypodcast.com if you want to, before listening to this episode, to look up the links of the things we are talking about. On this week's show, we have Steve Delahoyde. Reading from Steve's website, and knowing Steve, of course, I can say that Steve is a multi-skilled filmmaker. He has produced, directed, edited, animated, sometimes all at once, hundreds of commercials, corporate videos, trade show promotions, and very, very funny short films. My disclosure for this week is that Steve has been a personal friend and collaborator at the Lincoln Lodge for nearly 2 decades now. And you can see Steve's work and latest project with Steve Martin, in it, at Delahoyde.com. So, hello, Steve.
Hello.
Hello again. Alrighty, so let's get going on your list. Let's just
All
get
right.
straight into it. Enough with the pleasantries, Mark. So, the first thing on your list is, and I'm going to explain this a little bit more than I would normally because I had to look this up. Found objects planted by humorists that someone is going to find and react to.
hmm
And you said the same deal with Dom Jolly's Trigger Happy TV, which I looked at more of a prank thing. So please explain the planted found objects to us.
Sure. So there's a couple of there's a guy who's been around forever, and I shamefully don't know his real name, but he's operated under Obvious Plant, and he's made like product things that look very real, but they're ridiculous. And he it's like product design. So he packages these things, and they're very bizarre. But then he leaves them in stores. I'm trying to think of some examples. I'd have to look it up, but he the idea is that you see the thing, and the thing on its own is very funny, but the I don't know, more abstract version of it is that it's wonderful to think about the person walking through like a Safeway and seeing that thing for the first, and seeing this bizarre thing and sort of wrapping their head around um, what that what's that doing here, and is this real? And it's just it's ridiculous. I'm just looking it up now. There's a package that says "Pretend Mommy is Dead," and it's a little tombstone, but it's wrapped up in like a dollar store packaging thing, and it's always in like broken English, sort of like this is a product that was packaged in another country and found its way to this dollar store. Um,
Kind of like the ones
it's
where you see the cheap version in the costume store, like
yeah, yeah, and
Space Invader Man, and it's really Han Solo or something.
yeah, yeah. And there's been this tradition. There was somebody else that's been doing this since like the 80s or so. Like this isn't the first guy who's done it. My friend Dan Henrik was sharing this thing with me of this guy who's been doing this sort of thing forever. And there's a old book called the Principia Discordia, um, which is super weird, but the push of the thing is that it's how great it is to make people like to shatter their world for a little bit with something insane and make them kind of temporarily like look around the world and like nothing makes sense for a fleeting couple of seconds.
It's a fun
um,
sort of gaslighting.
yeah, yeah. And when I was in my younger days, in my 20s or something, my friend Waki and I we'd make flyers and stuff and leave them in people's windows, like car windows. There was one about, it was a flyer all about why my first name isn't Adam or something like that. And it was sort of this like treatise on why whoever this person was, why their first name wasn't Adam. And you could just imagine, you never see the person get the thing and
Yeah.
look at it like, what the hell is this? But you can sort of imagine
Yeah.
of them going through that process. And like, you hope that people would enjoy it, but you also like,
Yeah.
you can just imagine somebody getting off of work and finding this thing is like, what the hell? And, or being upset at it or so, just
Yeah.
having some sort of reaction, but you're never going to see it.
Yeah.
Um, and that's in with the Dom Jolly. He had a TV show that was, I believe, in England.
Trigger happy.
Yeah, they ported it over. It was on Comedy Central for a couple of seasons, um, and the entire thing, it was like a candid camera where he would do prank
Yeah.
stuff, but it was never focused on for very long like the person reacting to it. It
Yeah.
was all just about the event. Like it was all in your head. You had to imagine
Yeah.
the person seeing this craziness,
I,
but it wasn't as overt as Candid Camera or something of like, we got you.
yeah.
It was all focused on the weirdness.
I remember I loved that series. There was one where they set up a fake Santa's grotto with all these stupid gifts. And there's a camera, and the kid goes in the grotto, and Dom Jolly, dressed as Santa, apathetically hands him half a skateboard. It's like a skateboard that's been sawn in half, and the kid just takes it out and hands it, looks at his dad,
Right.
and holds this half a skateboard up.
Yeah, that's terrific.
Just like, and then there was one, he bumped into Paul Weller on the street and is interviewing him, and then just runs away halfway through the interview.
Yeah, that's and but the brilliant thing is like on a Candid Camera or something, they would
Yeah.
stick with that person
Yeah.
reacting,
And
but
explain
instead
it.
they just cut away onto the next thing, and it's so like it's so much better in your head, much funnier than if they sat and like, oh wow, that was crazy, like there's something beautiful about that.
Yeah.
I've got a story, if I'm not babbling on too long.
Nope.
um
I'm listening.
my my wife, Claire Zulke, is a writer, and she used to write a lot of entertainment kind of news stuff. And she interviewed Dom Jolly once at the height of Trigger Happy. And I was a sociology minor in college, and there was some there. I've forgotten it now, but it's some really long word. It's like ethnomethodology, illogical. It's some babble, and I said like, that's what he does on the show. It like plays with people's norms, and you should ask him if he's studied that. And she asked him that question, and he said like, your boyfriend sounds like a real asshole, which was the perfect answer because I was. So that was my connection to Dom Jolly.
I hope he said that with like a wink and a smile, not
Yo,
just
I'm
a
sure
grimace.
he did. I'm sure he did. Like, it wasn't very deep what he was doing, but it was, I was trying to make it like, I don't know, some sort of study.
Do you think the genius of the bit is that you don't even need to see the reaction, because the limit is what your imagination has placed on it, right?
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
You can imagine this person walking around for years, like just scratching their head, questioning reality for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Or they just scrunch it up in a ball and go, idiot kids. And but you get to own that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I love that. There's another guy that does it, True Wagner. I don't know his name. It's something like Aaron Wagner or something, but he's got an Instagram thing, and he puts out flyers taped to street poles in LA, and they're all super weird, and it's just that passing by, like it's lo-fi also to a degree of like public access TV or something that you just stumble on and you really love, and how weird it is, and like you don't know if it's real or if the thing is that bad. It's just great. I've gotten back into it. I've started putting up flyers in my neighborhood of strange things. So
we need to link to the band video.
Oh, the Lemonade Band.
Lemonade Band, yeah. Look for the link to that on the website, viewers. I will leave it at that. I want to tempt listeners in with that one.
Yeah, that takes a lot of explanation, but it's sort of a reverse version of that. Yeah.
Okay. So I think we and then again we'll put links to this stuff So here's a rabbit hole you've sent me down this week.
Uh-huh.
In the email you said I'm a huge fan of the film The Stupids. I got halfway through it. Huge bomb, directed by John Landis. So what is it? Okay, I have a theory, right?
Uh-huh.
Every person in them has one movie that they love against all of the odds. Everyone's got one. With me, it's the movie 1941, which
Oh, I've never
Steven
seen that.
Spielberg followed Jaws with it. And the explanation I heard of why it turned out like it was that everyone on the movie was coked out of their heads. It was the
Yeah.
only movie Steven Spielberg said he ever did without storyboards,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it shows, right? But with me, I end that movie doubled over in laughter all the time,
Oh, wow.
and I
I've
think
never seen it. I've always read all the stories about how
it,
terrible it is and what a disaster it was.
no, it's definitely, you can tell that, oh yeah, I see why this people would say it's a disaster, but there's a couple of key scenes in it that are just surreal, um,
Yeah.
in how good they are. Because it's like, they were all coked out of their heads. They were bound to hit genius a couple of times in the thing, and that to me pulls me through. So enough about me. The Stupids. What is it? Give me your explain the movie because I'm assuming virtually no one saw it, and then why what it is about it.
Sure. It's based on a children's book series of the Stupids, and the Stupids are a family that just does everything opposite. Like when they go to bed, they sleep the wrong way in bed, and their feet are sticking out, and their heads are under the covers, and they're just everything is opposite, and everything's they're stupid. Um, and so they made this. John Landis made this movie in I guess the mid '90s, early '90s, maybe a little bit later, and it had quite a budget. Like Tom Arnold is the lead in it, and it just tickles me. Like I bought it at Laurie's Planet of Sound in Lincoln Square in
Yeah,
Chicago, just on a whim. Like somebody, it was recommended, and you couldn't. So I picked it up and I watched it, and it's so committed to stupidity and to like the idea of everything's opposite. Um, the set design and the costumes and the plot, it's just so. And so recent I've probably seen it 10 times, and we just rewatched it again with my two kids, who are two boys, 5 and 8, and they were, like, it spoke to them.
mm,
um I don't know. It's just so committed to being so dumb that
yeah.
I love it more than anything. It's
So it's the commitment is the key,
yeah, yeah,
not
and it's just
wavering.
there's like stuff I notice everyone like every time I watch it. Like in this recent watching, I had never noticed that um, Mr. Stupid is drinking coffee, and so he's put the bag of coffee grounds, like the entire bag, in a pot, um, into a coffee pot with water, and so he's drinking out of that. And I don't think he's even drinking; it's just sitting there on the table.
Mm.
But it's I don't know, it's wonderful, and it's like wholesome in a way.
Yeah, yeah. It's sort
Um,
of Pee Wee esque. The bit that I
yeah, oh
got
yeah,
through
yeah.
is I think if you like Pee Wee, you're gonna like that
To
film.
me, yeah, like if you watch Pee Wee, the best part of that movie is, do you have something to add, Amazing Larry? Um, like there's that scene where they just mention Amazing Larry, and there's no reference to why he's amazing or why
Mm.
it's just this weird little aside. And The Stupids is just a movie full of that.
Yeah,
Like,
it's just one long weird
yeah,
aside from what I
it's
saw.
I think it's the closest to like a live action Simpsons,
Hmm.
where it's just full of that kind of like strange jokes. And
Yeah.
yeah, I just love it so much. I would watch it right now again in a
Well,
heartbeat. Like
are you a Landis fan? Because, like, I am totally in the Landis camp in terms of directors.
I like it. I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan.
Okay.
I'm a fan, but I wouldn't count myself. That wouldn't be one of my first.
because it's
Uh,
like he made Kentucky Fried Movie, which to
yeah,
me is probably the apex of American humor,
which
and
is great. Yeah,
but he also made the Thriller music video. It's like, holy crap, dude! Talk about
yeah,
range. I mean, that's just a range.
yeah, yeah. Oh, for sure. But I just, yeah, I love it, and I'm unapologetic that I love the stupid so much.
Uh,
And the books are good too. Like the kids, my kids have a couple of the books, and
huh.
they're just as silly and like just as sort of dad jokes.
Hmm.
Um, like they have picture frames in the background, and it'll be a painting of a boot, and it'll say like grandpa or something underneath the, like they just do everything so wrong, but they're so wholesome. And like it's
Yeah.
just great.
Huh.
It's terrific.
Was it written by some person who turned out to be incredibly dark and
I
you
don't
know
know.
uh,
I don't know.
huh,
I think the I think it was a guy. I think it was two maybe Australian guys that wrote the
hmm,
children's books, and I think they were involved in the script. But I've never researched too much of it other than I know I've read the reviews of it, which are great because everybody universally hated it, and
hmm,
I feel like didn't understand it. But the reviews are fun because it's like they're on a different planet than I am,
yeah.
um, in how I regard it. So.
Huh. Yeah, as I say, I think everyone's got one of them. Let me ask you as a filmmaker, because I was thinking about this the other day, right? There are
Hmm.
so many bad movies, right?
Yeah.
At some point, if you're watching a movie that is so incredibly bad, right,
Hmm.
there's got to be a point at some point where the entire crew, the actors, everyone realizes, like, oh my God, this is bad. Like, what we are doing is bad.
Yeah.
Like, how do they deal with that collectively? Like, everyone's got to be looking at each other in the eye, like, this is a steamer, right? This is, and like, why, these movie studios that are so risk averse. How do these
Yeah.
things sneak by them? I mean, the little sort of B movie that gets made by a bunch of Columbia students, and it's like not a massive budget, you can understand. But when it's a
Yeah.
lot of money, you're like, how does this even keep going?
I think if you shot a movie sequentially in order, you would feel that way. But the way anything is made, you're shooting, the end of the movie first, and then for 2 weeks you're shooting the
Hmm.
middle parts, and like it's so broken apart that you can't really see the forest through the trees.
Uh,
And then once you get into editing it, like I've done that, like I've shot things that I thought were really funny or commercials or something, and then you get into editing it and was like, oh, this, we really have to save this with an edit because it's not as, we were all doubled over laughing at how funny it was in person, and then you get in there and it's like, oh man, it's
yeah.
fine, but it's not, I see the problems.
Huh.
um, and most of the crew wouldn't be, like on a big movie or something. They, it's a job for the most part. Like
Yeah.
especially in a bigger production, like it's a 9 to 5 kind of thing. Like you're not probably paying too much attention to the script if you're not like the top line crew. It's
Huh.
so I'm assuming people do realize all the time that it's a stinker, but I think just by the nature of how you make films
Yeah.
and how weird it is, you wouldn't really have any sense until like the editor is probably the first one to realize like, oh God, what is this? Um,
And it's
which I'm
too
sure
late
happens.
then.
And then the editor too, like,
Yeah.
that falls as much on editing's head as anybody. If a movie is bad, like that's the real God character in the whole thing of who can turn this edit around, and like and make it work.
Hmm.
So
And they barely get a mention at the Oscars. Really.
yeah, no, I mean but it's impossible to tell. Like that, the editing Oscar is bizarre to me because how you don't know what was there. Like unless you were sitting in the room with every editor,
Yeah.
you have no idea. You saw the movie. Like, how can you tell what the edits were? It's a bizarre award.
Huh. Okay. All right. Well, let's move on to the next one then.
Okay.
So you said that you share an affinity for typos with your father, particularly in newspapers. Um, you still exchange clippings, and any sort of humor created by mistake is
Yeah.
good to you. So explain that one.
I wish I had examples. I'm ill prepared, but it we've always he would always clip out things uh, like where they used the wrong word, or if something got cut off um, uh, in a caption or something, where it doesn't make any sense. I mean, it relates to the thing I talked about, like the found humor kind of thing
Yeah.
of um, you're like the thing I found one my dad just sent. There was a thing from the Arizona Republic. My parents live in Arizona, and it says NBA teams will wear contract tracing sensors amid pandemic. So instead of contact tracing sensors, it's contract tracing sensors. So like at any minute they're gonna, like, it's sensing what their contracts are doing. And there's just something funny about, like, I don't know what's funny about that, but I really love it. Um,
I think you like the folly of humanity. Would that be
yeah,
it? Just like strip the curtain back and say, look, we're all
we're all
making
fallible.
mistakes here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In one of Gary Larson's Far Side books, he had a section in the intro about that, about formatting some of his Far Side comics when things would get chopped off, and then suddenly the 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 cartoon wouldn't make any sense at all. Like if you chopped off the top, it wouldn't you wouldn't see the sign, and that was the whole thrust of the joke, and how he really enjoyed that. Um, one of my one of my I remember I had it. My dad cut it out because he couldn't figure it out, but it was like a Far Side era cartoon. It wasn't Gary Larson, but it was two fish in the sea, and one fish was saying to another fish, "Zut alors," which in French is like, "Oh
Yeah,
God."
yeah,
But there was no caption. The caption was cut off or something,
yeah.
and we both stared at it for the longest time of like, what does this mean? Um, and it was clearly just a mistake, either that or we're dense. But I love that it was like this weirdness suddenly, kind of by accident. It was, yeah.
Maybe that was the editor playing with the with the newspaper that day to say, oh, let's see what people think of this.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
many
And
people wrote in?
it stuck with me for some reason, because I just like the bewilderingness of it. Like the you get confused for a few seconds, and it's great.
Huh?
And so he sends me stuff all the time whenever he finds something. And then it's the same thing of like the crass version of that is like Black Angus, like the G burns out, on the sign.
Yeah,
Um, uh, it's that sort of thing. Like that's the other side of the,
yeah,
where it spells something dirty, or there's just something nice about that it's
yeah.
the world isn't as structured every now and again.
Yeah, it's a little bit of innocent comedy, I guess. It's like when you go abroad and signs have been translated to English, like
Yeah.
literally. So it was kind of like a few years ago. If I can just bring this back to me, just
Uh-huh.
roundabout.
Sure.
We went to India and we went to the Taj Mahal, and there was a sign that was like it just said something like "No throwing particles in hedges" or something. Yeah, it just meant don't litter, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
obviously I see this and I'm giggling and blah blah. But it wasn't until like after weeks later when I was going through my photos and I realized, like, we went to the Taj Mahal. That was the only photo I had was of
Yeah.
that sign. Like,
Yeah.
not the actual Taj Mahal itself, one of the wonders of the world or whatever. Not one photo, but
No. Sure.
like,
Sure.
look at this stupid sign.
No, that's totally me.
Yeah.
I
So
love that kind of thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think sometimes I think there's a need to see the foibles of humanity in the slickness that we deal with now, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's the psychology. Okay,
Oh,
so
that's great.
we've left the really juicy one till last.
I hope I deserve it.
It's kind of actually talking of how reading things funny. You put you put I'm a big Roy Anderson fan, and I read it as I'm a big Roy Anderson, like a wrestler. Like I'm a big Roy Anderson fan. He's the best wrestler, but no, he's not. He's Scandinavian, so
That
there's
would
no
be
sort
great.
of frivolity. Um, so Roy Anderson, obviously, is a Swedish filmmaker,
I
and
don't know,
he,
obviously.
as don't confuse him with Big Roy Anderson, but yes. So the thing, if someone said to me, "What would Steve Delahoyde find funny?" I would. The first thing out of my mouth would be Scandinavian slash German humor because it really is like so deadpan and just so not trying and therefore that much funnier because of it
Yeah.
kind of thing. So give me the background for the novice on Roy Anderson.
So he's a Swedish commercial director that made movies. He I don't remember how many movies he's made. Maybe 6 or 7. He has a new one coming out. But his big thing is he never moves the camera, so it's always a locked off shot. There's been a couple of films where things have moved in the background, like the background setting, but there are always these shots of like they're almost like paintings. Like everybody's kind of seated in one area, but there's a lot of depth to them, so they're big rooms. Um, and in the films, everybody is like almost like kabuki style white, almost sort of.
Yeah,
They've got like a lot of powder. Like everybody's got this like deathly Swedish pallor to them. Um, but they're really super funny. Like his commercials are great, and they are so painfully deadpan. Um, and there's a slow build to them that is just amazing. And he sort of pops into scenes. Like there's what I don't remember what movie it's from, but it's this long. It's like 5 minutes, and all of the movies sort of intertwine. Like there'll be scenes, and then it'll go somewhere else, and you don't know who these people are. And some of it'll all kind of connect at the end, or there's some sort of theme, or he'll come back to some scene 30 minutes from now that kind of connect. They're like loose segmented. But anyway, so there's this guy and he's setting up this table, this long table with glass and stuff, and he tugs on the runner every once in a while, or the tablecloth every once in a while, and what he's going to try is he's going to
yeah,
pull the tablecloth, and then everything's going to stay there. And so it's this long, long build up, and then he pulls it, and it all falls over, like everything breaks, and it's just like cataclysmic disaster. And then that's it. That's that scene. Um, but it's just that like expertly. Or there's in the movie a pigeon sat on a branch reflecting on existence, which is a couldn't be a more Swedish name. Um, they're in a diner, or on a boat or something at a cafeteria thing, and a guy, they just open on the scene. There's a dead guy on the floor, and the captain is there, and a couple of people that work on the boat, and they're saying he's died. He's died of a heart attack, but he died right when he had his food and his beer at the cash register. And so it's this moment of quiet, and there's all these people looking at the scene, and the woman running the cash register says, well, he's not going to eat this food, or he's not going to drink this beer. Does anybody want it? He's already paid for it. And there's a slow thing, and an old guy in the back says, I'll take the beer. And it's just this, it's so quiet, but so ridiculously funny. But they're slow, and they're Swedish, and they're I feel like I don't watch a whole one in one sitting. Like I'll watch
yeah.
like half of one of his films, and then
Do you have any specific affinity with the culture of Scandinavia, or it's just the humor part of it?
I don't. I do. I don't know why. I grew up in Arizona in Phoenix, and I feel like you're always fond for the thing that's the most opposite, and so I've always loved like Norway and Sweden, and
Yeah,
I've spent some time in Norway and loved it. Uh, but I like the, yeah. I mean that style of just deadpan
yeah.
is great.
It's funny with Scandinavians because I knew a lot of them through motorcycle racing, and they're like maniac. Take them out of Scandinavia, and they're like totally different. But
Huh.
I've been all around Scandinavia, like and you know where the humor comes from if you set foot there, right?
Yeah.
Because there's no drama in the place.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No, I have to go back, and he's got a billion commercials. Like he's one of the most successful commercial directors in Europe, and especially in Scandinavia. And like you can watch on YouTube like 2 hours of his commercials, and they're all I mean, there's the same setup where the camera never moves and something
yeah,
happened, but they're 30-second like little snippets of these, and
yeah.
they're all great, and they're slapsticky but in a slow sort of way, or
Hmm.
it's just it's they're like living paintings kind of,
All
but
right.
funny.
All right. Well,
And then
that
you can brag to all your friends that you like this Scandinavian
yeah, you come off as
hoity-toity director. Yeah.
come off as artsy. All right, well that's those are the items on your list. We're actually going to wrap up in a couple of minutes, but first, I mean, I feel like I have a section where I talk about the influence that these things have exerted on you, but with you, I kind of feel like there's no need for that. 5 minutes on your website, and I know that everything that you find funny, you absorb and mirror back. I feel like, do you feel that is a correct description?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I wish I did that. I wish I did the humor stuff all the time for my work, but a lot of my work is like commercial
Yeah,
stuff, and which isn't as funny. But I've tried to, when I work on personal things, or when I try to make those as weird and me as possible,
yeah.
because that's my love.
Okay, so let's just talk about the last couple of things. So one thing that it's funnily enough has been the hardest section for people to answer is what is the one thing that you feel like everyone else finds funny and you're just lost on it? That you just feel like I don't get this at all.
um, I've never been a bodily like humor kind of thing, like
Yeah, yeah,
farts, and um, that's never been. And I have two boys that are under 8 years or under 9 now, and they think it's wildly funny. And
yeah,
I've never, I've like it didn't get me in grade school. It didn't get me in, like I don't I that has never struck me, or like a gross out film, like
yeah,
any which seems has been really popular in the last 10 years of
yeah,
um like a bridesmaids thing. I think there's a scene, I've never seen it, but that there's stuff that that's just that seems easy to me for some
mm,
reason. And I'm always, it doesn't, like, come on guys, you could have tried harder than that, than
yeah,
somebody like having explosive diarrhea or something. Like, I don't
yeah,
understand why that was your grade A joke.
yeah. You don't get that in big Roy Anderson films.
No, but if you did, it would be done well, and then I would appreciate it because it's artsy and Swedish. So
Yeah,
then it would be acceptable. But I feel like I'm softening a little bit on that now
yeah,
that I've had kids that find it hilarious.
yeah.
Um, that their enthusiasm for that has kind of put chinks in my armor, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
Yeah.
still not my bread and butter.
So, talking of armor, I sent you a few links. I mean, we've known each other for so long, it felt kind of redundant, but I sent you some links. One was a Harry and Paul parody of Scandinavian,
Yeah.
which I found hilarious. Just there was a line in it as like, "Is this the first time you've seen a corpse or something?" to an 8-year-old kid, it was. I mean.
Yeah.
um, and then there was a French and Saunders parody of Bergman, which
Hmm.
is burned into my brain. It's like I know they overdid parody French and Saunders, but that one was just so well done. Did you find those funny, or were you just like, they were all right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially the parody one, the first one, the of this like Swedish crime stuff. Like it's fun to do a parody like that, but then also the kid, whenever he opens his mouth, goes like, "Ah, ah, ah," and he's sort of like a penguin,
Yeah,
I guess is the idea.
yeah.
But like a thing that is like you've taken this parody, which is great, but then added this extra batch of weird is
Hmm.
amazing.
And
Um,
then because you'd like Dom Jolly, I sent you the Philomena Kunk, which that's
yeah,
been the funniest thing of the last few years to me. And it's funny that Charlie, God, don't you hate Charlie Brooker? It's like, is there
yeah,
anything you're not good at, you bastard?
yeah. Oh, that's great. And the way like the way it's written of like oh the way that the English is like sweat like they do is and was of like what is I don't remember the way she was saying it is just it's so poorly written in such a smart way. It's great. Like
Yeah. I don't know if had you seen her before or was that an
no,
introduction?
I'd never heard of that
Oh,
before. So I'm
you got to
excited
mainline the
that character.
Philomena Kunks. Yeah, that is top line.
Yeah.
Okay, we won't discuss 15 Stories High because that's old news. All right, well, I think I'm going to wrap this episode up. Just have you got anything coming up we should be looking out for?
Um no. I've been at home for a year and a half, you know. I'm making some weird things as much as I can, but
Yeah. Well, you
yeah,
did.
I'm doing a thing for a Science Atlanta, which is some sort of fest thing that's being moved all online, and we're doing a promo for that
Hmm.
as like a pro bono thing with the emphasis on like or with the caveat that like, hey, we're gonna make this weird. Is that okay? And they said okay, and so uh, that's what I'm working on. That'll be out, and I think we're shooting parts of it on Wednesday, and then it'll be like a month later it'll be out. But that's how I get to do fun stuff for work is I offer to do it for free, um, and then they'll let me be as weird as I want to. So
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see that go up eventually at thehoyd.com, will we?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's been our show. Thank you again, Steve.
Oh, for sure. Thanks for having me. I hope any of it was interesting.
Very interesting, as usual. Okay, and let's cue the jangly guitar outro and then the standard thing that I'm going to record.